Welcome to another deep dive.
Oh, this is going to be a good one.
This time, we're tackling Zen Buddhism.
Yeah, you guys have given us a lot to work with this time.
So much. We've got Alan Watts' The Way of Zen.
Oh, a classic.
We've also got historical texts and even some writings on how Zen shows up in art.
Really gets you thinking.
It's going to be fascinating to see how it all connects.
Absolutely.
So our mission today
Okay.
is to break down the core principles of Zen.
All right.
See how it tackles those big human questions.
Yeah.
And maybe even see how these insights can apply to our everyday lives.
I think people are really going to get a lot out of this one.
I think so too. It's incredibly relevant, even today.
You know what's interesting?
What's that?
Even amidst all the chaos of modern life, these Zen teachings feel so timely.
Totally. It's like we're at this crossroads, right?
It's like Watts said, Western civilization is this mix of amazing creativity and potential for destruction.
It's true.
It's like we're questioning our reality, and Zen offers a completely different lens to look through.
Absolutely. And speaking of different perspectives,
Yeah.
there was this phrase in the text that really caught my eye. Empty and marvelous.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It seems to be pointing towards this idea of suchness, like seeing the world without judgment.
You got it.
Did I get that right?
You're right on the money.
Awesome.
So suchness is about accepting reality as it is.
Okay.
The good, the bad, the beautiful, all of it.
All the messy bits, too.
Exactly. It's about stripping away those labels
Oh, the label.
and just letting things be.
Letting things be.
Think about it.
Okay.
When was the last time you judged a situation as bad?
Ooh, good question.
And how did that judgment color your experience?
Probably not in a good way.
Right. Zen asks us to drop those judgments
Right.
and see things for what they are.
So just be present with whatever's happening.
You got it.
And this reminds me of a verse from the Zen Kushu that really struck me.
Oh, which one?
It says, "Fire does not wait for the sun to be hot, nor the wind for the moon to be cool."
That's a powerful one.
It's like everything just is.
Exactly. Things are just as they are.
It doesn't need our approval.
Or judgment to exist.
It's a good reminder.
It is.
So is this challenging that Western idea of linear cause and effect?
You know, it really is a different way of looking at things.
Like everything's happening all at once.
More like everything's interconnected, you know?
Okay.
Like that analogy of the moon and the water that Watts talks about.
Oh, right, the moon and the water.
It's not that the moon is causing the reflection.
Right.
It's the water and the moon together creating this image.
So our idea of cause and effect could be limiting how we understand things.
It might be, yeah.
Wow, okay.
And speaking of challenging thinking,
Okay.
there's this whole concept of the illusion of self in Zen.
Okay, that one's a little mind-bending.
It is.
So Watts argues that our sense of self is a story we tell ourselves.
It's a symbol we cling to.
And this clinging creates suffering.
Exactly.
Why do you think Zen puts so much emphasis on letting go of the ego?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
If our sense of self is just a story,
Okay.
maybe all the suffering we experience is from trying to control that story.
Trying to make it go the way we want it to.
Exactly. And Zen is all about being present, accepting things as they are.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
There's this great anecdote about Matsu twisting Po Chang's nose.
I remember that one. It's a bit out there.
It is, but it gets the point across.
Okay.
It's this sudden experience that makes Po Chang question his perception of time.
And his sense of self in that moment.
You got it.
Okay, now my brain is starting to hurt.
It's a lot to take in, right?
It is. It's profound, but also a little scary to think about the self being an illusion.
I get that.
So if we let go of this idea of who we are, do we just float around aimlessly?
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, like no goals, no ambitions.
Zen isn't about passivity or becoming an empty shell.
So it's not about giving up on everything?
Not at all.
Okay, good.
It's about realizing that our attachment to this fixed sense of self, to specific outcomes, causes a lot of suffering.
Okay.
Imagine a tree rigidly planted in the ground, refusing to bend in the wind.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Eventually it breaks.
But a tree that sways with the wind can survive anything.
Exactly.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Zen points us towards living fully in the now
Embracing the present moment.
and moving with the flow of life.
I can see how clinging to rigid expectations could be a recipe for stress.
It definitely can be.
But how do we actually do that?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. It's easy to talk about letting go of the ego and being present.
But how do we live that way in a world that's all about achievement and going, going, going?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's where Zen practice comes in.
Okay.
Things like Za-zen or sitting meditation.
So it's about training the mind to be more present,
Like I'm a muscle.
less reactive to all those thoughts.
You got it.
So before we delve into specific practices,
Yeah.
can you paint a picture for us of what a typical Za-zen session looks like?
Sure.
What's the vibe?
Imagine a serene zendo,
A meditation hall.
often tucked away in the mountains somewhere.
Peaceful?
Yeah. And inside, it's quiet, focused.
Okay.
Monks sit in rows on those tatami mats.
Right.
Their posture is upright, but relaxed.
I could picture it.
Their breath slow and steady.
Just taking it all in.
The silence is palpable.
Broken only by the sounds of nature
Or a gentle bell.
to mark the time.
Exactly.
It sounds so peaceful.
It is.
But I also know that Zen has a reputation for being a bit perplexing.
Ah, you're thinking of the koans.
Yes. Those Zen riddles that are supposed to break through logical thinking.
They are designed to, yes.
I'm really curious to hear more about them.
Well, they're a unique part of Zen practice.
Like puzzles for the mind.
That's a good way to put it.
Meant to short-circuit our usual way of thinking.
And lead to a direct experience of reality.
Okay, do you have any examples?
Sure.
I'm dying to hear what these sound like.
What is the sound of one hand clapping?
Whoa. Another one is, does a dog have Buddha nature?
Okay, those are definitely head scratchers.
Notice how they don't have easy answers.
Yeah, they're really making me think.
They're meant to push us beyond just intellectual understanding.
So how do you even approach a koan?
It's tough.
It seems like you'd need a guide, right?
Absolutely.
Someone to navigate this mental terrain.
That's where a Zen master, a Roshi, comes in.
They guide you.
Yeah, in these private interviews called sansen.
So the student presents their understanding of the koan
And the master challenges them
to break through their preconceptions.
to see it with fresh eyes.
So this is all making sense, but it raises a question for me.
Okay.
How does this emphasis on the present moment and dissolving the self play out in the real world?
That's a great question.
Right. We're not all living in monasteries.
Exactly.
Will Zen have practical applications beyond those walls?
You know, Zen's influence goes way beyond the monastery.
Oh, that's right.
It's really shaped Japanese culture, especially in art. So we can actually see Zen principles at work through these art forms.
Absolutely.
That's a much easier way for me to grasp these ideas.
I think so too.
Where shall we start?
Maybe something like sumi painting?
Yeah, let's talk about sumi.
It's a perfect example.
Okay.
This style of ink painting embodies Zen simplicity and directness.
I've seen those paintings. They're stunning.
They are.
So spontaneous, minimal detail.
There's this concept called controlled accident in sumi,
What's that?
where the artist works with the ink and brush.
Embracing those unexpected turns.
You got it.
So it's not about recreating reality perfectly.
It's more about capturing the feeling, the energy.
In a very intuitive way.
Exactly. Letting go of control.
Letting the creative process unfold naturally.
Just like how Zen asks us to approach life itself.
I love that.
And we see the same spirit in haiku poetry, too.
Ah, haiku.
Those short, evocative poems,
They intrigue me.
they are intriguing.
But sometimes I don't quite get them.
Well, haiku is all about capturing a fleeting moment in nature.
Okay. An experience, a feeling in just 17 syllables.
Wow, that's concise.
It relies on imagery and suggestion.
Not explicitly stating the idea.
Right.
So it's about inviting the reader to experience the poem through imagery.
You got it. Like, take this haiku by Basho. An old silent pond. A frog jumps into the pond splash. Silence again.
That's beautiful. It really paints a picture.
It does, doesn't it?
Amazing how much can be said in so few words.
It is.
Is there another art form where this Zen influence is really strong?
The Japanese tea ceremony, or chanoyu.
Oh, the tea ceremony.
It's the ultimate expression of Zen.
I've always been curious about it.
It's fascinating.
So elegant and refined, like a moving meditation.
It is.
How does it reflect Zen principles?
There's every single element.
Okay.
From the tea preparation to the design of the room and the utensils.
Wow.
It's all imbued with Zen principles.
So there's this meticulous attention to detail.
Focus on the present moment.
And an appreciation for simple beauty.
Yeah, even the movements are slow and deliberate, creating this sense of mindfulness.
Exactly.
And it's a social ritual, right?
It is.
With a host and guests.
There's this emphasis on respect and harmony.
A shared appreciation for the moment.
It's a great example of how Zen can apply to social interaction.
Fostering connection and presence.
Exactly.
This is all so insightful. I'm already seeing things in a new light.
I love that.
I'm wondering if Zen has a similar influence on other Japanese arts.
Like calligraphy.
Yeah, or gardening.
Absolutely.
Do they share these same principles?
Japanese calligraphy, or shodo,
Okay.
embodies spontaneity and mindfulness in each brushstroke.
So it's not just about making pretty characters.
It's about being fully present in the moment.
Okay.
And Japanese gardens,
Yeah.
with the rock arrangements and carefully pruned trees,
They're designed to evoke tranquility,
harmony with nature.
reflecting Zen's emphasis on simplicity.
It all comes back to those core principles.
We've covered so much ground already,
I know, right?
from core Zen principles to art and culture.
It feels like we've just scratched the surface.
It does.
But before we go any further, it's important to connect this back to you, the listener.
Good idea.
What's standing out to you from our discussion so far?
Yeah, what resonates most deeply with you?
What sparks your curiosity?
Take a moment to reflect on that before we move on,
Hmm.
to explore even more facets of Zen practice.
There's so much more to uncover.
I'm ready for part 2.
Me too. This is going to be good. You know, it really is amazing how these Zen principles just pop up everywhere.
It's true.
In art, in everyday life.
Yeah.
It's not just a philosophy. It's more like,
A way of life.
exactly.
You know, it's funny because you mentioned that Zen isn't really a religion.
Right.
And going through all these sources, it really feels more like a practice,
Yeah,
a way of engaging with the world without getting stuck in dogma
that's a great point.
or belief systems.
It's about stripping away all that stuff
The layers of abstraction,
and just experiencing the world as it is,
raw and unfiltered.
in all its suchness.
That makes a lot of sense, especially with all the emphasis on letting go of the ego,
Right.
living in the now.
It's not about seeking some external deity or clinging to doctrines.
It's more about cultivating a deep awareness of our own experience.
In this very moment.
Exactly.
And that awareness,
Right.
that direct insight into the nature of reality is what Zen calls Satori.
Satori, or
So
awakening.
Right.
Okay, so maybe we can shift gears a bit
Sure.
and dive deeper into the practical side of Zen.
The practice itself.
Yeah, exactly. We've
Lovely.
talked about Za-zen and Koans,
Right.
but are there other techniques that are considered essential? For example, Watts talks about this concept of wu-wei,
Ah, yes.
effortless action.
Effortless action.
Can we break that down?
Yeah, it's often misinterpreted as passivity.
Or inaction.
Right. But it's not about that.
So what is it about?
It's about aligning our actions with the natural flow.
Going with the current.
Exactly. Instead of fighting against it,
Okay.
imagine a skilled archer effortlessly releasing an arrow.
Just letting the bow do the work.
That's wu-wei. It's cultivating a state of mind where action arises spontaneously
Without the ego getting in the way.
without all those desires and anxieties.
So it's not about being lazy
No,
or avoiding action.
it's about acting with ease and flow.
That sounds so challenging in our society.
I know.
We're constantly being pushed to strive and achieve.
It's like we're conditioned to fight against the current.
Instead of surrendering to it,
You got it.
we waste so much energy trying to force things to
And
happen.
trying to control everything.
And Wu Wei is saying, step out of that struggle.
Align yourself with the natural order.
It sounds so freeing.
It can be.
But how do you actually cultivate effortless action?
Well,
Is it something you learn or unlearn?
it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Zen practice is about cultivating awareness of your own mind.
Through practices like Za-zen,
Exactly.
we become attuned to our thoughts, our emotions,
And those habitual patterns.
the reactive.
Right. And as that awareness grows,
Yeah.
we start to see how our suffering comes from clinging,
Clinging to a fixed sense of self.
trying to control things we can't actually control,
So it's about letting go,
letting go of that tight grip.
allowing ourselves to flow a little more.
Exactly.
I can see how that could lead to a more harmonious life.
Less stressful.
Yeah, definitely less stressful.
But it takes dedication.
And practice.
Definitely is.
Zen is a lifelong journey
It is.
of self-discovery,
And transformation.
refining our awareness,
Deepening our understanding.
cultivating a better relationship with ourselves.
And the world around us.
Yeah, this can be applied to any part of our lives, right?
Absolutely. Work, relationships, creativity.
It's a perspective that can bring clarity and purpose
And that effortless flow.
to everything we do.
Exactly.
That makes me think about Zen's influence on art.
Something we were talking about earlier.
We discussed sumi, haiku, and the tea ceremony.
Right.
But are there other ways Zen principles have shaped Japanese culture?
Oh, absolutely.
And aesthetics.
Zen's influence runs deep.
So deep.
It goes way beyond traditional arts.
Okay, so give me some examples.
Look at Japanese design.
Minimalist, right?
The emphasis on natural materials, the appreciation for imperfection,
I love that.
asymmetry,
It's all a reflection of Zen principles.
Finding beauty in the simple,
Like every day.
the transient nature of things.
It's about appreciating what's right in front of us.
Exactly.
You know, even Japanese gardens.
Yes.
They incorporate natural elements like rocks and sand and water.
To create a sense of peace?
Is there a connection to Zen there too?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Japanese gardens are often seen as miniature versions of the cosmos,
Wow.
reflecting that Zen worldview of interconnectedness.
Harmony.
Exactly. The arrangement of the elements isn't random.
So it's carefully considered.
To evoke a sense of balance.
Tranquility.
Yes.
So even the placement of a single rock can impact the whole garden.
It can.
That's fascinating.
It is, isn't it?
It's this attention to detail, the simplicity, the harmony
It all points to a deeper understanding
of the world.
of how everything fits together.
I'm starting to get it.
Good.
All this talk about art and design makes me wonder about intuition, spontaneity
Yeah.
in Zen-inspired art forms.
It's interesting.
Is there room for improvisation? Or is it strict rules and techniques?
Zen art walks this line between discipline and spontaneity.
Okay.
There are traditional techniques passed down,
But there's also this emphasis on trusting your gut,
your intuition.
letting the process unfold naturally.
Remember controlled accident in Sumi.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the unexpected
Letting go of control.
and letting the ink and brush guide you,
So it's about being present.
and trusting that the art will unfold in its own way.
Just like life,
Exactly.
it all connects back to wu-wei.
Effortless action
Letting go of the need to micromanage.
and allowing things to emerge organically.
Yeah. It's really inspiring to think about life as this creative process.
It is, isn't it?
It makes me feel lighter.
More open.
Yeah, open to whatever comes next.
It's a beautiful shift in perspective.
It really is.
And it leads to an important question.
Okay, what's that?
How do we actually integrate these Zen principles into our everyday lives?
That's the question, isn't it?
Right. We're not all living in monasteries.
Not all of us are practicing traditional Zen arts.
So how do we make this wisdom practical to our modern lives?
That's a great question.
It
I'm
is.
sure our listeners are wondering the same
I
thing.
think so too.
But before we jumped into that,
Yeah.
let's recap what we've covered.
Make sure we're all on the same page.
We've explored some core principles of Zen
We delved into its history.
and touched upon its influence on art and culture,
We talked about suchness,
the illusion of self,
wu-wei,
and cultivating presence.
mindfulness.
What stands out to you as a listener?
What feels relevant right now?
What's sparking your curiosity?
Take a moment to reflect on that before we continue.
There's still so much more to explore. Yeah, going through all this material on Zen, I'm struck by how practical it actually is.
Yeah, it's not just about esoteric rituals or anything like that.
It doesn't feel like you need to live in a monastery to get something out of it.
Exactly.
This is like something we can all tap into,
It really is.
regardless of our backgrounds or beliefs.
Zen wisdom is surprisingly down to earth.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating a different way of seeing things.
A way of being in the world
That can bring more peace
and clarity.
into our lives.
So how do we actually do that?
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
Right.
How do we apply this Zen mindset in the real world?
With all the distractions and demands.
It all starts with mindfulness.
Okay. Mindfulness.
Paying attention to the present moment.
Without judgment.
Exactly. Like, just notice your breath,
Okay.
the sensations of your body,
Really being present.
or really listening to someone speak.
Without letting your mind wander.
Yeah, without thinking about your to-do list.
Those sound like valuable skills to have,
They are.
even outside of Zen.
Absolutely.
I think we could all use a little more presence
And focus.
in our lives, but Zen also talks about this no-self idea,
Right.
which still feels kind of radical.
It does sound radical, doesn't it?
It does. How can we reconcile that with daily life?
Yeah, where we have all these responsibilities.
Relationships, our sense of who we are.
That's a great question, and it often gets misunderstood.
Okay.
No self doesn't mean we stop existing
Okay.
or stop functioning.
Right.
It's more about recognizing that our sense of self isn't as solid or permanent as we think.
Okay.
We play different roles throughout the day.
Right. Parent, employee, friend,
Exactly.
all these different hats we wear.
Zen just asks us to see through the illusion of this fixed ego.
To be a bit more fluid.
Yeah, this allows us to move through the world with more flexibility and compassion.
Adapting to situations without clinging to a rigid sense of who we are. That's a much more relatable way to think about it.
It is, isn't it?
It's not denying our individuality,
Right.
but recognizing that it's not as fixed and unchanging as our minds make it seem.
And this all ties into spontaneous action, doesn't it?
It does.
If we're not so caught up in protecting this rigid self-image,
Yeah.
we can respond more naturally
A more authentic.
to whatever comes our way.
So it's like we tap into that effortless flow when we let go of the need to control every outcome.
Exactly.
To protect this fixed idea of ourselves.
Think of it like navigating a winding path.
Okay.
We don't try to force the path to be straight.
We adapt to the curves.
We move with the terrain instead of against it.
That's how we can move through life's challenges with more grace.
And ease.
It all makes me wonder how the Zen mindset can help us deal with difficult emotions.
Yeah, emotions are a big part of life, aren't they?
They are, and if we're always striving for a good state of mind, we're going to be disappointed.
You're going to be disappointed a lot.
Right. Does Zen offer a different way of handling the ups and downs?
It absolutely does.
Okay.
One of the most powerful teachings of Zen is acceptance.
Acceptance of things as they are.
It doesn't mean resigning yourself to suffering or anything like that.
Okay.
Or giving up on making things better.
What does it mean?
It means recognizing that fighting reality only creates more suffering.
That makes sense.
Zen invites us to acknowledge our difficult emotions,
Without resistance.
letting them arise and pass away like waves in the ocean.
So it's not about suppressing or denying those negative emotions.
No, not at all.
It's more about observing them,
With a sense of detachment.
letting them run their course without getting swept away.
You got it.
Because when we resist those emotions, we just give them more power.
Exactly.
So Zen is encouraging us to meet those feelings with curiosity,
Just observe them.
without judgment,
It's a tough practice, but it can lead to greater peace,
equanimity.
even in the midst of all the chaos.
Wow, this whole deep dive has been incredible.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
It's so clear that Zen offers so much wisdom
Timeless
that
wisdom.
we can apply to our daily lives.
It's not just some ancient philosophy.
Right, it's a way of being.
That invites us to embrace the present moment
Let go of striving.
and find harmony in the flow of life.
You know what's really powerful about Zen?
What's that?
It's the emphasis on direct experience.
It's
It's not about blindly following rules
dogma.
or clinging to rigid beliefs.
It's about cultivating awareness, questioning your assumptions.
Finding your own path to understanding.
Exactly.
As we wrap up,
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what resonated most with you, the listener.
What insights will you take with you?
How might you experiment with these principles in your own life?
It's a journey of exploration.
It really is.
And we encourage you to keep exploring
Find what works for you.
and see how these ancient teachings can bring more peace
Clarity
and a little bit of Zen
into your modern life.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll catch you on the next one.